In this episode, I'm going to be talking a bit about mob and story design, looking at an Easter-inspired arc that I created, and using it to discuss these two important elements of mission creation. Firstly, mob creation. When you go to create a mission, one of the decisions that you have to make is what enemies to use. The system is preloaded with almost all the pre-existing groups and allows you to create your own. The first way of creating a new group is to take the enemies from existing groups, recolor, rename, and write them a new backstory, just in case any of your players have thought to check that. The next option is to create a group from scratch by creating all the enemies in it yourself. It works a bit like creating a player character, except that you can mix and match power sets across archetypes. The enemy is designed in the character creator, using all the items that you have access to, though you are unable to use custom colors with their powers. This is a very powerful tool and can be used to great effect. It can also inadvertently create enemy groups which were fine when faced as a solo player, but overwhelming when fought by a group. The rabbits from this arc are an example. As originally created, the lieutenant grade enemies had control powers. This is fine when solo, and probably would have been fine if there'd been more than 2 types of lieutenants in the group. As it stood though, with 50% of the lieutenants having heavy control powers, it made traversal through the mission painful for a group. The lesson to take back from this is that control or defense powers were best used on minions which go down easily, or bosses which are relatively scarce. Another ability you have when defining your enemy group is to set some enemies not to auto-spawn. This allows you to have powerful or weak named opponents without otherwise skewing the group's spawn rate. The final way of creating the group, and often my preferred one, is to mix and match between the pre-created creatures and custom ones. The ability to rename, recolor, and redescribe the canon enemies when mixed in with custom created mobs allows you to create a unique experience for your players, one tailored to the story you're trying to tell. Now let's talk about story design. An arc created in the Mission Architect can have up to 5 missions. I found that an odd number of missions tended to work quite nicely, as it allows you to follow a simple set of beats. The situation is established in the first mission. In the second, the situation worsens or is further complicated. And finally, in the last mission, the situation is resolved. In a 5-mission arc, these become something like established situation, minor setback, partial recovery, major setback, resolution. As there's no built-in way to branch missions, the best way to introduce complications is between the gutters. Things that happen whilst the characters aren't there, and they discover them in the closing and introductory text of the mission. It should be noted that as the PCs can't influence these sections of the arc at all, you need to be careful not to kick around the idiot ball. Obviously not every story follows the same beats. Establishment and complications, or complications and resolution, can often be put into a single mission, or even with a big enough map, all 3 basic elements can be placed into a single mission. In addition to text from the contact, the MA allows for shaping of the story with the different types of details and maps that you can add to the missions, and the placement of those details within the mission. Each and all map is divided into a number of zones, front, middle and back, which then allows you to place narrative elements in the order that you want the players to encounter them. Further complications can be added to the missions by making them timed, or making them require them to escort an NPC to a certain objective, or requiring them to exit the map before the mission is complete. These sort of tools should only be used if something's actually going to challenge them. Or possibly if it's for an RP group, you want to give them a bit of time to discuss things before you exit back to the Mission Architect area. For instance, in the case of making them walk back to the entrance of the map, one of the things you can do is, say, spawn an empty map, or spawn a bunch of patrols that don't actually activate until an objective at one end of the map is reached. They reach the objective and then suddenly the map fills up, or these extra patrols spawn, actually making it a challenge to get back, because obviously if there's no challenge, there's no point making them do the walk. And now I'm going to quickly write a single mission arc to demonstrate how one is made. Create a new mission. So I said we're going to do this one mission arc that covers all the beats and stuff, as well as adding a twist. Let's see, we're going to go with something pretty simple. Your archetypal stopping somebody robbing a bank, maybe robbing a shop. So we have a story title. Right, as a story contact, we are set standard contact. These are all the standard contacts in the game that you can set. You can get the heroes, you can get the icon and face maker dudes. You can also have objects, which is quite good, I found, for these are the official objects. Which I found was you can also just have plain objects, which are pretty much any object in the game. I found this quite handy if you're trying to do things like plans or you know, characters finding mysterious things that give plot away. But anyway, we're doing standard contacts, and we're going to go with police or law enforcement. Let's find it. Law enforcement, there we are. And we're just going to pick a generic cop. We're going to give him a generic name. Right, it's a work in progress. It's a heroic mission. We're not going to bother with the keywords. They're to help people find things. We can also assign a souvenir clue, which we might type out, and this appears in the list of souvenirs like a normal arc souvenir. Right, so what we need to do now is we need to pick an enemy group. We've got the option of I said all the standard groups, or I can pick one of my custom groups that I've pre-created. We could have the Riot Girls. These are a group I made. They're a bit like the Freaks, but 80s and all female. They've all got song lyrics as their mission info. They weren't a very in-depth group. They're just there to be annoying. Or we'll just exit out. We could use a group that had a mix of standard recolored enemies, custom enemies, and here we have a bunch of non-respawning enemies. Here we have a recolored Danan, who's been redone as Frozen Earth Spirit. The other thing you can do with making your own groups is take a group that's entirely made of renamed normal enemies. So these are mixed of Freak Show and Carnies, all in the same level range, because that's important. You had to make sure that your level range was had overlapping ranges, and then set your group so it contained everything in the range, or not everybody in your group would spawn. But for this mission we're going to just use a standard enemy group. We want it to be fairly low level. Whilst it's funny that you'd sometimes have Lord Recluse robbing banks, it doesn't actually make that much sense. So we're going to pick one of the Lodi gangs. So we're going to go with the... who should we go with? No, I mean Freak Show do go for banks. Actually, yeah, let's go for the Freak Show. They're quite good. They're quite fun to write sometimes. And now it's a bank, so we go to... See, we've got all sorts of different types of maps we can set it in, but we need to find the bank. The unique maps category, then we select our subcategory, which are banks, and now we need to think a bit about how many things we're going to have going on in our mission, so that we know what size bank to have. And see, it warns you on errors, so we're just going to start typing in the text. Now one thing we could do is actually have the freaks just there to open a bank account, because there are some reformed freaks in the thing, but they're actually based in PI and Peregrine Island. So I said I use colour coding for things, for sort of descriptive text. Something like this I probably do in blue because it's not actual speech getting from an NPC. and as you're writing, you can see what all the text looks like. We're going to leave the return success dialog until I've finished the rest of the details. Another thing you'll notice down here is we've got the mission size ticking over here. It's based on a combination of how much. Okay, this is the text that appears when the person pops into the mission. In this case, I'm letting them know that there's another hero on the scene. Flambeau is a bit of a tricky case. Sometimes she's a hero, sometimes she's a villain. The key thing about her personality and why I'm going to use her in this arc is that she's really keen on media attention and being liked. Stuff like the mission success pop-up and so on we'll be leaving, as I said, until I've done the details, so I've got more information about how the mission goes. Normally when I'm writing a proper mission, I have a little outline, though I do freeform the text. Right, now we go on to making the mission goals. Every mission needs to have at least one goal. So we're going to have the boss, and since I've set the enemy group as the Freak Show, we're going to set boss enemy group the Freak Show as well. And have a look at what we can have. An arch-villain's really a bit out of it. Certainly for a solo mission, it's going to be a fairly low-level mission. Whilst the Freaks go from level 25 to 54, bank robberies, as I said, are a fairly low-level thing. So let's have a look. I kind of like the noise tanks. They're fun. You don't see them very often. They actually mainly appear in a single task force. So we need to give him a name. This is the name that'll appear. He's a noise tank. As I said, normally I put quite a lot of thought into names and coming up with funny options and so on. But we're going to go with the Noise Maker. Misspelling deliberate. Anyway, he's a Freak Show. He's what we have to do on the bosses is we say where he's created. If it's compulsory for the mission, at least one objective in your mission has to be compulsory. So he's an enemy, he's going to be at the back, and this enemy group thing is how many enemies around him. We're going to leave it on easy, which is sort of the default setting. And the surrounding enemy group, same as boss. This means that his enemies are freak notes. Now you can do some quite fun things here. You could say have a friendly boss group, or you could have a boss surrounded by other enemies for storytelling reasons and so on. So what's he going to be doing? We have a whole bunch of animations that he can do. I'm just going to find something. Let's see, he's overseeing the I mean, we could be funny and give him a clipboard, but I don't see how that's going to work with his blade hands. So let's find something. What's he doing? Now what we need to do is think about a bit about the Noise Maker. He's robbing the bank. Why is he robbing the bank? Is it just for money? Yeah, but it could be, but it'd be easier for them to knock over something like a shop. So it's going to be something in the vault. There's a guitar in the vault he wants. So what we're actually going to do is give him a dance emote. Can he do a dance emote? That's the problem with the pre-made guys, is sometimes they don't have full access to the that makes him look like he's waiting for the toilet. So rampage. We like rampages. Rampage. Again, doesn't work. Anything that holds a hand doesn't work with his horrible arms. Can you do greedy? Yes, we like greedy, and we also set a animation for the boss. So there's carrying explosives, which I quite like. Carrying crate of dynamite. So his accompanying freaks are going to be doing that. This says whether you just need to beat him or beat the entire encounter. And here's where you get to do most of your dialogue. So we've got two navigation texts here. One is if you've got more than one of an objective, or you want several different types of objectives to appear as the same sort of thing in the bar. But we've only got him, so we're going to put him down as stop the robbery. Now, there's a sort of a conceit with the freaks to make them talk in leet, which is funny, but I don't think it fits the noise maker. That guitar is mine! And that's the text he says when he's defeated. We're going to leave him. He's only a boss, he's not going to last that long, so we're just going to leave him with only text in his halfway point. For say an AV where the fight's going to last a little bit longer, you could get away with text at the 3/4 and 1/4 mark. Now, since you can't have a lot of dialogue in the actual speech, I often use clues to give to say what people were there for. Right, so that's our main objective, is defeat the boss to stop the robbery. Next, since we know we've got Flambeau on the site, we are going to add her in as an escort. Or can we add her in as an ally? Does an ally do... Yeah, so we're going to add her in as an ally, and we're going to see if whilst I'm pretty sure Flambeau exists as an existing character, we're going to actually just create her. We're going to make her a boss, we're going to make her ranged. I don't think I've ever seen her fly, so we'll leave her movement on none. We know she's a fire blaster. Just going to leave her all at standard powers, but as you can see, this is what she gets to do. Oh, we're going to give her fireball as well. And her secondary set, it tends to be quite handy to just... I can't think she's ever really demonstrated any. So to give her a bit of survivability, we're going to make her regen and just leave her on these 3 powers, which basically have no visual effect. She's female, she's about 6 foot odd. It's not exact. I could certainly probably, it'd be easier to do the real one, but this sort of be an idea to show you how making an NPC actually works. We've done that, so there we are. There's Flambeau. Now here, this is the Ally Stranded dialogue. It's basically there to let the players know that they've got ahead of the NPC, because sometimes the pathfinding can be a bit flaky. You can either write it as the character actually needs help and is lost, or in the case of heroic allies or villainous allies, basically proactive characters rather than rescued hostages, I like to write it as they're doing their own thing, they're going to deal with something else whilst you go on. We've given her some text now for her animations. Now, what I might do is actually give her some fire powers, a fire aura around her hands to make it look like, look more like she's doing something. Right, so we've got a main goal. We've got an ally with a trick. Now we're going to add a patrol. Chatty freaks. This is for flavour. So they're just going to wander around. The settings we have for patrols is that we could have a friendly patrol, and then we give them some dialogue. You've got 2 lines of dialogue. You can sort of maximize it out to 3 lines by, if you assume that there's an unspoken question, this guy is replying, the first patroller. Okay, we've got an unspoken line here. Then there's a reply, and another reply. So effectively you can sort of get 3 lines of dialogue in if you imply the first one. Now that we've got our mission sorted, we've got the main event, which is defeating the noisemaker, and we've got a bunch of optional things. There we are. There's not much in the way of story or anything, but as you can see, we've got the basic elements. You've got the initial setup, which is the police call, the complication of Flambeau, and finally the resolution. So we're just going to run in test mode and see how we do. Okay, so let's see what's happening. Got some freaks here. There's Flambeau. Now, I'm not getting any XP here because I'm in testing mode rather than actual playing mode. One annoying thing about the freaks is the way they get up again. Now, if she'd been set to fight defensive, she wouldn't attack anybody until you set her, she actually takes damage herself. With her set on aggressive, she'll fight anything she notices. Now, I made her a boss, which might be a bit strong, but since she is intended to survive to the end of the mission and fight the player character, that's not a bad move. Obviously, if they're supposed to genuinely be a helper, you'd want them to maybe only be a lieutenant so that they don't overshadow. Unless, you know, you have special reasons for using a higher powered character. Now that's her whinging because her first of her text has come in, which is when she first takes damage, she just goes ow. And because this is a fairly small map, we've run out of details. We can't say add an ambush. I don't know where my... Oh, there's my hostage. In the same room as the noisemaker. Now, as we notice, as he gets to... We've got a completion here, but Flambeau's gone hostile, which is what I intended. Now, if I wanted to make sure that we have to fight Flambeau before clicking the mission complete thing, I could add a secure the safe objective or disarm the bombs option, and then you wouldn't get that you wouldn't get the mission complete until you'd done that. But there you are, a quick 1 mission arc with a beginning, middle and end.